Oh my gosh, we are back again on Jeffrey Epstein. This time we're going through part 2. Who would have thought that the very next day after we got over 940 pages on Jeffrey Epstein, we would have gotten yet another drop of over 300 pages. This time talking about Bill Clinton bursting into Vanity Fair, threatening them not to write about his friend Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, there's a lot to cover in this one. We're going to go through all the details. These details just dropped. We're going to go through all of these details together here. There is a lot. If you have not yet been caught up, you could go to ehack.com. That's my website where we kind of drop our research and our annotations and stuff. Get caught up on everything we talked about on Jeffrey Epstein yesterday. We did a full summary yesterday on the Epstein files. You can see that right here. Again, ehack.com, Epstein files. Not only do we have a summary, but we have all the links to the videos and the documents on there. The documents we're covering now we'll throw up on there as well shortly. But first, let's get into this. Wow. Okay, so first thing we have here is an email between Virginia. Remember, Virginia is the young girl, or was the young girl. She was born in '83, who is allegedly one of the first, or one of potentially many, younger age girls to perform sexual acts on behalf of Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Virginia claims that it was very common. In fact, the younger the better for the girls. And part of her job was to recruit other young age girls. But she believed that most girls working for the Epstein and Maxwell cult were between 15 and 21 years old, and they were sent around the world to live a life of luxury, but also to have sex with prominent people. People like the Democratic Senate Majority Leader. You had Alan Dershowitz. You had modeling agency heads. You had Prince Andrew. A lot of big names. Again, watch the 25-minute video summary from yesterday. A lot of people are watching it. A lot of people are enjoying that. This is going to be a longer video because we got to go through part 2 in detail here. So this is an email from Virginia. She goes by Jenna. That becomes important in just a moment. We discovered that yesterday as well. That's her nickname. But anyway, this is an email between her, Virginia, and Sharon Churcher. Sharon Churcher is a journalist. Virginia writes, good points, all of them. She's debating with Sharon how much of the story she should share because she feels this is a gamble. She's not sure what to do. She thinks she wants to write a book. She thinks she wants to tell the press some of what's going on. But this is where you'll see in here the Bill Clinton reference. Listen to this. Good points, all of them. I'm looking at both sides of the picture. On the upside, it will give exposure to build up publicity for the case and the story. But like you said, it must be carefully written, the journalist article, must be carefully written to not give any notions about the upcoming book. In other words, she's not trying to pitch or advertise the upcoming book yet. She doesn't want to get rid of the potential explosiveness of announcing a book. Now, this does create some monetary incentives to potentially stretch the truth. And I want to be very, very exceptionally clear here. I'm not here to side with anyone who's sex trafficking anyone. But let's just put it this way. If Virginia's thinking about writing a book, obviously, the more juicy the story, the better, okay? And I'll tell you, based on what we read yesterday, there was plenty of juice. Just not the kind you really wanted. Anyway, talking about this right here, what do we got? On the upside, it will give exposure to build publicity for the case. Must be carefully written to not give away notions about the upcoming book. When I was doing some research into Vanity Fair yesterday, it does concern me what they could want to write about me. So in other words, Virginia, is worried about what potentially Vanity Fair might say about her. And then she says this, quote, considering that Bill Clinton walked into Vanity Fair and threatened them not to write sex trafficking articles about his good friend Jeffrey Epstein. Wow, that's a pretty big one right here. That's a big allegation right there. This is now alleging that Bill Clinton walked into a Vanity Fair office demanding, this is a president, demanding they don't write negative articles about a sex trafficker. That doesn't look good. That's definitely a strong allegation. So we'll keep this in mind. Now remember, he was president from 1993 to 2001. Virginia started working with Maxwell and them between 99 and 2001, but she basically started working in 99, which is when she was roughly 16, 17 years old. That's when she was picked up essentially at Mar-a-Lago to start working for Maxwell after they met just outside the locker room. Bill Clinton was president from 1993 to 2001. So it's likely that if Bill Clinton stormed into Vanity Fair, it occurred after his presidency. Okay. Should I be asking what this story they're writing is pertaining to? She's asking this other reporter, hey, should I ask Vanity Fair? What are y'all thinking about dropping on me? You gonna say something bad about me? I wouldn't want to give the public a bad image or anything like that. I don't know. It's all such a gamble. I just thank goodness for having a friend like you on the inside who knows how to deal with the viciousness of today's world. I will let Brad know what you have recommended. Thanks again, Jenna. So then we get to Sharon's reply. Sharon's reply is, I would let Vanity Fair buy your picture via Brad. So in other words, they copy Brad right here at pathtojustice.com. And they're saying, hey, look, let us have the exclusive rights to your inside photos. Because the gamble would be the big gamble would be to let him also give them a statement saying your interviews with us were accurately reported and you have no more to say. In other words, Sharon wants it to seem like Virginia has way more to say for her tell-all book, right? You want to be able to add details to how you were sexually trafficked, especially since two of the world's most respected politicians were included. Yikes. Now, those names are blacked out right here. So we still have a mystery. This mystery is going to be going on for a while. But there is more mystery here, as well as women, the scenes with Maxwell, because you're writing a book. The reason this is a gamble is Jeffrey knows some of the most powerful people in publishing, and once alerted, will inevitably try to scare off potential buyers. But the upside is, it should help you get a good agent. I would have Brad use the phrase sex trafficked, as this is a heads up about the book revealing more than we printed, basically. So these are emails circulating between between the journalist and Virginia, where Virginia is spilling beans here, or alleged beans, on Bill Clinton. It's pretty big. Now, in addition to this, there's a phrase that's trending right now, and it has to do with blackmailing. So we're going to do a quick find. Here it is. Okay, let's understand what this is, because this is Jane Doe number 3. Good Lord, another one? Hold on a sec. Let's see. This is Exhibit C. Okay, so this is Exhibit C. Hold on. Let's get to the right place. Exhibit C in this document is, it looks like a statement of fact. Give me one sec to pull it up here. Oh, I just lost my page. Stand by. There it is. And okay, Exhibit C. So this is Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2. In addition to Jane Doe 3 and Jane Doe 4's motion pursuant to Rule 21 for joinder in action. In other words, 2 women who are still not identified are suing. Well, actually, this looks like Jane Doe 1 and 2 versus the United States. Oh, this is interesting. Anyway, so Jane Doe 1 and 2 are suing, and then 3 and 4 are like, you know what? We also are part of this, and we also have a claim and want to sue. Come now, Jane Doe 3 and 4, also referred to as the new victims, by and through undersigned counsel, file this motion on the condition that they not re-litigate any issues already litigated by 1 and 2, the current victims. The new victims have suffered the same violations under the Crime Victims' Rights Act as well as the current victims. Accordingly, they desire to join this action to vindicate their rights as well. Because these new victims will not relitigate any previously litigated issues by the current victims, and they are represented by the same legal counsel, the government will not prejudice if the court grants the motion. The court may at any time add new parties to the action. Okay, great. Factual background. So this is put together. I'm going to put a little note here because I think it's worth noting. So this is put together, written by the attorneys for victims. So even though it says factual background, it's still put together by the attorneys of the defendants, right? So it's like the defendant's facts. All right. As the court is aware, more than 6 years ago, oh, that's been going on for a while. More than 6 years ago, Jane Doe 1 filed a present action against the government, alleging a violation of her rights under, and this was that same act that we had right here, Crime Victims' Rights Act. She alleged that Jeffrey Epstein abused her and the United States had entered, oh, now we get into the NPA. Oh, this is where it gets juicy. Okay. So they're arguing, hey, I was abused and you're protecting the abuser. That's what they're arguing here. So look at this. She alleged that Jeffrey Epstein had sexually abused her and the United States entered into a secret non-prosecution agreement, NPA, regarding those crimes in violation of her rights. At the first court hearing on the case, the court allowed Jane Doe 2 to join the action. 1 and 2 specifically argued that the government had failed to protect their rights to confer, to reasonable notice, and to be treated with fairness. In response, the government argued that the CVRA does not apply to 1 and 2 because no federal charges had ever been filed against Jeffrey Epstein. The court firmly rejects the United States' position. In a detailed ruling, the court concluded that the CVRA extended rights to 1 and 2, Jane Doe, even though federal charges were never filed. The court explained that because the non-prosecution agreement barred the prosecution of crimes committed against them by Epstein, they had standing to assert violations in the CVRA. In other words, Jane Doe 1 and 2 have the right to continue going on with their lawsuit against the government for entering into a non-prosecution agreement with Jeffrey Epstein, which is also weird. Like that's what should like be making you kind of scratch your head is like, why did Jeffrey Epstein get a non-prosecution agreement? Like usually agreements are based on some kind of negotiation, right? You get something, we get something. What does the government get from giving Jeffrey Epstein a non-prosecution agreement? Well, maybe the government doesn't get anything, but maybe some of the people who were involved get to put this back in the closet. Ah, interesting. All right. The court explained that because the NPA barred the prosecution, okay, we read that. So, 2 other victims who were in many respects similarly situated to the current victims now wish to join this action. The new victims joining the stage will not cause any delay in their joinder, will be expeditious. Fine. As with Jane Doe 1 and 2, 3 was repeatedly sexually abused by Epstein. The government then concealed from Jane Doe 3 the existence of the NPA from Jane Doe 3 in violation of her rights. Jane Doe 3 was, in 1999. That's the same time as Virginia, although we don't know if is Jane Doe 3 Virginia. I mean, she's going to be one of these 4 probably. But anyway, Jane Doe 3 was approached by Maxwell, one of the main women whom Epstein used to procure underage girls for sexual activities and a primary co-conspirator in his sexual abuse and sex trafficking scheme. I'll tell you, it was a scheme. When you watch this, if you have not yet watched the summary video, the 25 minutes from yesterday, make sure you watch that. It's linked on ehack.com. In fact, it became known to the government that Maxwell herself regularly participated in Epstein's sexual exploitation of minors, including Jane Doe 3. Right. This is an allegation that we heard from Virginia as well, that Maxwell would basically require girls to, quote unquote, go down on her as well. Maxwell persuaded Jane Doe 3, who was 15. Okay, see, that can't be Virginia, because Virginia in 1999 would have been, well, 1999, I guess she could have been 15 at the early part of the year. But anyway, from the testimony we saw yesterday, she is 16. But again, she's one of these Jane Does, probably. Okay, so what do we have here? Who is 15 years old then? Yikes, that's just terrible. Okay, let's throw a highlighter on here. There we go. Maxwell persuaded Jane Doe 3, who was 15 years old, to come to Epstein's mansion in a fashion very similar to the manner in which Epstein and his other co-conspirators coerced dozens of other children, including Jane Doe 1 and 2. When Jane Doe 3 began giving Epstein a massage, Epstein Maxwell turned it into a sexual encounter, as they had done with other victims. Epstein became enamored with Jane Doe 3, and with the assistance of Maxwell, converted her into what was commonly referred to as a sex slave. It's interesting, yesterday we heard one of the girls referred to as a slave, I want to try to remember which one that was. It wasn't Sarah the Booker, but one of them was referred to as a slave. Let me see if I could get that. It was in the 943 pages yesterday. Emmy Taylor was referred to as the slave. My slave. Emmy Taylor was called my slave. So that means Jane Doe 3 could have been Emmy Taylor. Okay, let's write that down. Emmy Taylor. That makes sense because Emmy was the one who seemed young. Remember from Virginia's commentary? She's like, yeah, you know, I saw this girl who seemed really young, and it sounded like she was talking about going to high school. Oh, this is such a gross story. Epstein kept Jane Doe 3 as his sex slave from 1999 to 2000 when she managed to escape to a foreign country and hide out from Epstein and his co-conspirators for years. Wow. Epstein frequently sexually abused Epstein 3 not only in West Palm Beach but also in New York, Mexico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and in international airspace on Epstein's private planes and elsewhere. Epstein also trafficked the then minor Jane Doe, making her available for sex to politically connected and financially powerful people. Epstein's purposes in lending Jane Doe, along with other oh, here we go. This is juicy. Ready for this? Epstein's purposes in lending Jane Doe, along with other young girls, to such powerful people were to ingratiate himself with them for business, personal, political, and financial gain. Oh, here it is. As well as to obtain potential blackmail information. Well, now maybe it's no wonder so many of these people ended up dead. Wow. One such powerful individual was then former Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, a close friend of Epstein and criminal defense attorney. Epstein required Jane Doe 3 to have sexual relations with Dershowitz on numerous occasions while she was a minor, not only in Florida, but on planes, the Virgin Islands, New Mexico, New York, and otherwise. In addition to being a participant in the abuse of Jane Doe 3 and others, Dershowitz was an eyewitness to the sexual abuse of other minors of Epstein and Epstein's co-conspirators. Dershowitz would later play a significant role in negotiating the NPA on Epstein's behalf. Unbelievable. Dershowitz helped negotiate an agreement that provided immunity from federal prosecution in the Southern District of Florida to not only Epstein, but also any potential co-conspirators of Epstein. Thus, Dershowitz helped negotiate an agreement with a provision that provided protection from himself against any prosecution in Florida for sexually abusing Jane Doe 3. That is messed up. If you're one of these young girls, and then you hear the people who abused you are so politically powerful that they're basically able to get immunity from the government, that just makes you feel like crap. Because this broad immunity would have been controversial if disclosed, Dershowitz and other members of the Epstein defense team and the government tried to keep the immunity provision a secret from Epstein's victims and the general public, even though they knew such secrecy violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Maxwell, another person in Epstein's inner circle and co-conspirator in the sexual abuse, was someone who consequently also appreciated the immunity granted by the NPA for the crimes she committed in Florida. This is terrible. Maxwell took numerous sexually explicit pictures of underage girls, including Jane Doe 3. She shared those photographs, which constituted child pornography under applicable federal laws, with Epstein. The government is apparently aware of, in certain instances, possesses some of the photographs. Oh my goodness. Perhaps even more important to the role in Epstein's sexual abuse ring, Maxwell had directed connections to other powerful individuals with whom she could connect Epstein. For instance, one such powerful individual Epstein forced Jane Doe to have sexual relationships was a member of the British royal family, Prince Andrew, Duke of York. Wow, we heard about this yesterday, but to see, we didn't know the allegation with clarity that Prince Andrew was having relationships with some of the underage girls. That was implied, but this is a little bit more blunt on that argument. Okay. Let's see here. Various geographies. Epstein instructed Jane Doe 3 that she would give the prince whatever he demanded, and required Jane Doe 3 to report back to him on the details of the sexual abuse. Maxwell facilitated Prince Andrew's acts of sexual abuse by acting as a madam for Epstein, thereby assisting his internationally trafficked Jane Doe 3 and numerous other young girls for sexual purposes. Another person in Epstein's inner circle is Jean-Luc Brunel. Epstein sexually trafficked Jane Doe 3 to Jean-Luc Brunel many times. This was the head of that modeling agency. Brunel was another of Epstein's closest friends and regular traveling companion who had many contacts with young girls throughout the world. Brunel had been a model scout for various model agencies for years. He was able to get passports for young girls to work as models. He would bring young girls ranging as young as 12 to the United States for sexual purposes. Wow, as young as 12. That's horrible. Epstein also forced Jane Doe 3 to have sex with Brunel on multiple occasions. Epstein also required Jane Doe 3 to describe events she had with those men so she could potentially blackmail them. The government was well aware of Jane Doe 3 when it was negotiating NPA, that's the non-prosecution agreement, as it listed her as a victim in the attachment of the NPA. Moreover, even rudimentary investigation of Jane Doe 3's relationship to Epstein would have revealed the fact that she had been trafficked through the United States and internationally for sexual purposes. Let's take a look at some other names that we have in here, and then we'll keep bouncing through some of this. Let's look at, let's see, so we got blackmail in here. We saw blackmail on this page. We saw it here, we saw it there. Blackmail is mentioned twice. Let's see if, let's do a quick little scrub here. There is no mention in this document of Trump. We do have Clinton that comes up. We know that, especially regarding the Vanity Fair email. Okay, so what do we have here? So this looks like another Exhibit 4 filed under seal. What is this? This is the Virginia versus Maxwell document. This is an open court speaking directly to the judge. Okay, so this isn't the case. Your Honor. Okay, somehow Clinton comes up here. Your Honor, it is a meaningful distinction. I can explain a little bit of the background here. Plaintiff came forward and gave an interview in the press in 2021, claiming that my client was somehow involved with Mr. Epstein's sexual abuse of her. She gave an exclusive interview to a British newspaper. This sounds like an attorney for Maxwell. Because they're talking about what sounds like Virginia, which made the allegation that the plaintiff did and was paid for it, the sexual abuses. My client issued a general denial in 2021, saying that the allegations were untrue. At the time, the plaintiffs said that although she had been in contact with the likes of Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton and other famous people, there was no suggestion that such people had engaged in any kind of improper sexual contact with her. This is the attorney for Maxwell arguing that Virginia had not had sexual contact with these folks. Okay. What is this? Other highly relevant information. Hold on, let's make sure we didn't jump too far ahead. Yeah, that's a little bit of a jump. That's the one mention of Bill Clinton here. This is an open court. Here we go. What is this? Dershowitz came out even stronger and not only flatly denied it, but in fact called her a liar. Yeah, we remember Dershowitz called Virginia a liar and said, among other things, if she lied about me, she probably lied about all those other world leaders she claims she was involved with at the age of 17 or 18. And that story dates back to 1999. Okay, let's go forward a little more. What is this document? This must be the fact-finding again. Let's see what this document is. Okay, it's not. Let's see here. Motion to quash subpoena. Response to non-party Sharon Churcher's motion to squash subpoena. So it sounds like Sharon Churcher, who's the journalist, was subpoenaed. And this is a motion to kill that subpoena, to prevent Sharon Churcher from having to provide information to the court, basically. So why does Clinton get mentioned in this? Other highly relevant information in Churcher's sole possession is the identification of what documented information plaintiff was shown by Churcher, including flight logs, pictures, or witness statements. For instance, based on an email correspondence, it appears that Churcher was in possession of Epstein's flight logs. There is no indication that plaintiff had seen those flight logs prior to meeting Churcher. Plaintiff never mentioned certain names that appear in the flight logs prior to Churcher's meeting with her in February 2021. By way of example, Bill Clinton is listed on those flight logs. Plaintiff never mentioned or references Clinton, yet suddenly out of thin air, plaintiff allegedly reports to Churcher in 2021 that she met Bill Clinton twice and that Maxwell flew Clinton on a helicopter to Epstein's Island, a story which has since been fully discredited as a lie. This is simply one of the names and stories that were mysteriously added to the plaintiff's story, likely through Churcher's suggestive questioning and presentation of documents. So this is kind of a way of the defense for Maxwell arguing that, hey, look, you know, Churcher's just trying to get a story and she's encouraging Virginia to make stuff up about Clinton and other powerful people. This is that email. This is the email without highlighting about Vanity Fair. That email comes up a few times. He got off the first time around retaining Kenneth Starr, who witch hunt Bill Clinton, and Alan Dershowitz. The Justice Department is investigating corruption allegations against at least one prosecutor involved. Who wrote this? Hi, Jared. Oh, this is Sharon Churcher. So this is the journalist. And the journalist writes the following. She indicates, hopefully you have Virginia's book pitch by now. She has some amazing names which she can share with you in confidence. And I think she also has a human interest story that could appeal to the Oprah/female set, basically trying to pitch Virginia's story. Here are a few of the stories about Virginia, plus some examples of the massive U.S. and other international media pickup. Vanity Fair is doing a piece, I believe, in August. The FBI have reopened the Epstein case due to Virginia's revelations. I'm also attaching a link to a New York magazine profile of Epstein, written before his world combusted. The FBI believed he was essentially running a private and mobile brothel for some of the world's richest and most influential men. Wow. Those are the Clinton references in this, in the next Epstein set of files here. And this is, let's take a peek here. Okay. I should put part 2. Part 2 is in the thumbnail. There we go. I threw that on the title really quick. Okay, so let's keep going here. We know that Tucker dropped a piece today with the brother. So let's go grab that and see what we have here. And then we're going to keep going through these documents as well. So quickly transition, 1 second. There we go. All right. So here it is.
Around with while he was alive. People who flew on his airplane, people who stayed on his private island in the Caribbean, those who had dinner at his home off Fifth Avenue in New York. And to some extent, those names are coming out, not all of them, but we know a lot of the people who are in Jeffrey Epstein's life, and we have for several years now. But on another level, that whole story seems like a bit of a sideshow, because it doesn't answer the main mysteries surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's life or death. And there are 3 of them, almost none of which is ever discussed in the media. The first is, who did Jeffrey Epstein work for? What did Jeffrey Epstein do for a living and on whose behalf? We don't know. The second question is, where did all the money come from? Hundreds of millions of dollars that passed through his hands over many years. Yeah. And where is it now? We don't know that either. And the third question may be the most pressing of all, which is, what happened to Jeffrey Epstein? On August 10, 2019, he was found dead in the Federal Correction Facility in Manhattan, and one of the most secure places in the world. Did he kill himself, as the government has claimed ever since, or was he murdered? Well, the overwhelming evidence suggests that he was in fact murdered, and that the U.S. government, including the Attorney General of the United States, covered up that murder. These are the questions that matter most, and they're exactly the ones not being addressed in the news media. Why is that? We decided to speak to someone who has insight into this question, and that is Jeffrey Epstein's only surviving relative. His name is Mark Epstein. He was Jeffrey Epstein's brother, separated by 18 months. He's a successful real estate developer in New York, and he's very concerned for his own safety. So the interview that follows is one that you will listen to rather than see. Mark Epstein refused to appear on camera, but we think what he has to say is worth hearing. Here it is. Do you think your brother killed himself?
Not now. No. When I first heard he was dead from suicide, I had no reason to doubt it, so I accepted that. But then after the autopsy and after Bill Barr made that asinine statement, I said, this was not a suicide.
But when you first heard the news, you thought it was a possibility that he killed himself.
Yeah, I accepted it as a fact. I heard it on the news. The government didn't notify me, as they said. I heard it on CNN in the morning of the 10th.
And you're his only survivor. You're the only surviving relative.
Yes, yes. He has no children and our parents are gone. And there's no other siblings.
When did you start to think that he did not kill himself?
Well, after the autopsy and both pathologists, the city pathologist and Dr. Barden, came out of the autopsy and they said, this doesn't look like a suicide. It looks more like a homicide.
So what did you do then?
Well, I figured I'd have to look into this and see what's going on.
Were you shocked that he might have been killed?
It came as a surprise, yeah.
So as his only surviving relative, what did you do to find out what happened to him?
Well, I started to inquire about what took place. The Justice Department was supposedly investigating. The initial death certificate said pending when it said cause of death, which means pending further investigation.
Yes.
So, but then a few days later, it was declared a suicide by the chief pathologist, who was not at the autopsy. And the questions became, what investigation?
And remember the lacerations that you could almost see around Jeffrey Epstein's neck in the autopsy photo, which we won't pull up right now, of course. I'll rewind a little bit.
That was the pathologist who was there.
A suicide by the chief pathologist, who was not at the autopsy. And the questions became, what investigation was done in such a short period of time to make her determine it was a suicide? Or was she basing it on Bill Barr's statement?
And who was the chief pathologist who made that declaration?
Dr. Roman.
That was the pathologist who was there.
No. That was, Sampson. Barbara Sampson was the chief pathologist. Dr.
Right.
Roman did the actual autopsy with Dr. Barden.
So Barbara Sampson is the person who declared it officially a suicide, and she was not, as you said, at the autopsy. I mean, she was not present for it.
Correct. And when they call it a suicide, they stop investigating.
There you go.
Because if there's a suicide, there's really nothing to investigate.
Right.
If it's a suicide, because somebody killed themselves, case closed. So that's how they can just sort of cover it up. They never did an investigation. They never interviewed the EMTs that were called to the jail. They never interviewed the hospital personnel where his body was shipped. I can't get any answers as to what investigation was done. When I met with the Justice Department people a few months after the death, every question I asked was answered by saying, after a thorough investigation, we determined it was a suicide. It was like them pleading the fifth. I got the same answer to every question I asked.
So did you speak to Barbara Sampson, the official who ruled this a suicide?
No, I haven't been able to get to her.
Oh, she never called you?
No.
So in her public explanation, she has been asked about this. We tried to reach out to her. She refused to speak to us for reasons we don't understand. But in her official explanation, she suggested that she ruled it a suicide, effectively overruling the judgment of the people who actually performed the autopsy, because your brother had attempted suicide previously.
Yeah, but that's been shown to be false. You can listen to David Schoen, his attorney, on the podcast, the Crime Waves podcast. He explains that Jeff was attacked by his cellmate but he didn't want to report it as such because he was afraid of retaliation.
But every news account.
That's a very interesting argument, by the way, this idea that, oh, you know, you don't want to get your cellmate in trouble because then he might actually really hurt you. It's an interesting argument.
Of his initial injuries in the weeks before his death, said that he had tried to kill himself in his cell. He was found in fetal position on the floor after a failed suicide attempt, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, you know, once somebody says that, then everyone picks up the same story, and then it becomes, you know, the truth, just because it's been repeated so many times. But the fact is, he did not attempt suicide that first time.
So if he didn't try and kill himself the first time, then the medical examiner had no basis to declare this a suicide.
Exactly. Plus, there's reasons why he wouldn't kill himself then. He had a hearing scheduled to appeal the bail decision coming up in a few days. And the bail was being increased. So there's a chance he could have got bail. Even as unpalatable as that might have been to some people, you know, in the United States, you're entitled to bail under certain conditions. But, you know, so I could see if he went for the hearing for bail and it was denied, then I can see him taking himself out if he didn't want to spend a year in jail waiting for a trial.
Yeah.
But not a few days before. That makes no sense.
In your conversations with him and in your conversations with the people who were in contact with him at the final weeks of his life, was there any indication at all that he was suicidal at any point?
No, I had no conversations with him once he was arrested. I spoke to him the day before he was arrested. He actually called me from Paris, just the usual, you know, how you doing kind of phone call. And the next day, his attorneys called me and told me he was arrested. And that was the last time I spoke with him. I didn't speak to him or see him while he was in jail.
But having spoken to his lawyers and people whom he communicated with from jail, did anybody say that he seemed suicidal?
No, everybody was shocked that it was a suicide. Nobody thought he was going to kill himself. Nobody thought he would do that.
So what's interesting is that the Attorney General of the United States at the time, Attorney General Barr, said publicly and then wrote in his memoir that he had concluded conclusively that this was a suicide based on two pieces of evidence. One, the medical examiner, the person who performed the autopsy, declared it a suicide, which is a lie. That didn't happen. And two, because he had viewed the videotape at the entrance to the tier, to the cell block where your brother was being held. What do you make of that explanation?
Well, when I heard Barr's statement that he said he personally saw the videotape and he concluded it was a suicide because nobody went in or out, that's when it hit me that he's covering this up, because there's two sort of fallacies in that. One, I thought, why is the Attorney General of the United States, who I imagine to be a busy guy, why is he personally watching the videotape? Couldn't he have two people in his office watch the videotape and say, hey, Bill, nobody went in or out? You know, wouldn't that suffice? And two, to assume that somebody could get to that door, go inside, you know, kill somebody, get out completely undetected is just ridiculous, because I believe there are 6 levels of security before you get to that door. So to assume that somebody could do it that way is crazy. And any third-rate investigator will tell you that, you know, there was anywhere from 7 to 14 people on the other side of that door, on the tier, that could have killed somebody.
Right.
And I had been told from another source, I've been getting a lot of information from all sources, that cell doors were left unlocked that night. I don't know how many cell doors or whose cell doors, but if cell doors were left unlocked, then somebody could have went into Jeff's cell, killed him, went back into their cell, undetected. Now, in the Justice Department report, it says that from 3 cells, you could see Jeff's cell door. But if you look at the photographs of the tier, there's tiny windows in the cell doors. So in order to see Jeff's cell door from another cell, you'd have to be standing at that window inside the other cells in the middle of the night looking towards Jeff's cell. And if somebody crept low beneath the height of that window, you wouldn't see them. So the fact that, you know, to say that he could be seen from 3 other cells and they didn't see anything, well, chances are the other prisoners were sleeping in those cells if they had nothing to do with it. So again, it's just like a cover-up line.
Right. So in other words, the Attorney General said that nobody moved on to the cell block according to the videotape, but that is irrelevant because if your brother was murdered, he was almost certainly murdered by someone who was already on the cell block.
Exactly.
Right. So given that, and it's obvious and logical when you think about it for about 10 seconds, the identities of the other inmates on that cell block are critical. Your
Yes.
brother was alone in his cell.
Right.
So any one of those inmates could have killed your brother. Do we know who they were?
No, I can't find out who they were. There were 7 other cells, each with 1 or 2 people in them.
Yes.
Which means it's either anywhere from 7 to 14 people, other than my brother, on the tier that
Right.
night. I don't know who they are, or I know one, that guy Tattaglione, who was Jeff's cellmate for a while. He was there, and he was there for a long time. So if Jeff was killed, it's a possibility that somebody was planted in there. Cell doors were left unlocked. And then from what I understand, a number of prisoners were transferred off of that tier after the death. So if somebody was planted, he killed Jeff, and a day or 2 later he's transferred out, and he disappears into the ether. I don't know who the prisoners were. I'd like to find out who they are, and where are they now?
So there's, of course, a record of this. These are federal inmates in a facility run by the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Prisons overseen by the Department of Justice. So it's not like nobody knows who they were.
Now they have to have a record.
Right.
Sure.
But they will not release that to you.
I haven't been able to get anything. Right.
Let's go down the chain of documents that might explain this mystery. So the first would be the records of the first responders, the EMTs, who arrived at the scene and moved your brother's body from the cell to...
No, that's what I had thought, but when I spoke to an EMT, when they got to the prison, Jeff was already in the infirmary. The prison people moved him to the infirmary, which they were not supposed to do, because when he was found, he was clearly dead. The autopsy showed he was dead for at least 2 hours before he was found. So at that point, they're supposed to leave the body and call the medical examiner's office so they can come, take photographs, do the initial testing, whatever they do when they find a dead body. But that wasn't done. They moved him to the infirmary. And
They moved his corpse to the infirmary, but notified nobody else?
well, a 911 call was made to get the EMTs, and we can't get a copy of the 911 call, which is, we hear 911 calls for all sorts of other cases. This one seems to be missing. When they got there, he was...
One thing that I will say that bothers me about this is that this brother didn't contact Jeffrey Epstein once while Jeffrey Epstein was in jail. A lot of so far this brother's account, to me, sounds like he's obsessed with this story and he's just a watcher like us and throwing in his commentary. I keep listening, waiting for the brother to say something unique. And I kind of wonder if this is just an outside viewer, basically. And Tucker's like, oh, this will get good views. And this person's like, I get to be on Tucker. I'm a little sussed by this interview. We're almost like, we're about halfway through it. We'll listen a little bit more here, but I'm a little disappointed so far in this interview.
was in the infirmary, and he was clearly dead because, like I said, he had been dead for 2 hours. And there was a photograph of
Somebody here in the comments says you can't call people that are in jail. Yeah, you can.
him being wheeled out of the prison where he was intubated, squeezing an air bulb to try to get, so I was questioning, why are they trying to pump into a clearly dead body? Were they trying to make it look like he was alive so that he could be declared dead in the hospital? Because what I've been told, normally when they find dead bodies in the prisons, they want to ship them to the hospital. So they're declared dead in the hospital. Because an unwritten rule is nobody dies in prison. They don't want to deal with it. So they ship them to the hospital where he's declared dead. And when I questioned the EMT why they were intubating him, I said because he was dead for at least 2 hours. The response I got was, how do you know that? It was a kind of a strange response, but I knew that from the autopsy.
So we don't know who moved him out of the cell. No person has come forward to say, I moved this corpse from the cell.
No. But I was also told that in the infirmary and in the hospital, there was somebody with a handheld video camera all the time running, videotaping everything. Where are those tapes? That's another question.
Despite the fact that your brother was dead in his cell and had been dead for 2 hours.
At least 2 hours.
At least 2 hours.
Yeah.
Somebody cut off his clothing and redressed the corpse in hospital scrubs in a gown.
Yeah, I have a photograph of him in a hospital gown on a gurney in a hospital where, his arms were put through the sleeves. It's one of those gowns you tie in the back. So the question becomes, who decided to dress a dead body in a hospital gown? Normally they're either in a body bag or covered in it by a sheet.
That's bizarre.
Yes.
And 4.5 years later, you have no answers at all on any of these questions.
None. And I've tried to get the PCR report or the ACR report, which is the report that the EMTs fill out on every call they make. It's just their record-keeping system, and these are filed with the fire department. And as this video I sent you showed, they have no record of it.
So there are essentially no records of what happened at all. There's no videotape. The cameras were broken. The guards who are supposed to be keeping watch were asleep. They were convicted of lying, but then they were pardoned by a judge later, apparently, and one still works for the federal government?
I believe so, yes. I tried to talk to the guards. I couldn't get to them. I tried to contact them through their attorneys, and I couldn't get to them.
Okay, so then there was famously an investigation into this overseen by the Department of Justice's head investigator. Where's that?
Well, they came out with a report, a few months ago, and for 4 years we've been trying to find out what position his body was in when it was found, and we couldn't get an answer to that either. But in the report, it described how he was found. It said that he was in a seated position with his legs extended in front of him, and he was hanging from the top bunk. So if you picture that, basically all of his body weight, or most of his body weight, was hanging by this noose around his neck, or the ligature around his neck. He had some weight on his feet, but the bulk of his 180 some odd pounds was hanging. And they said when they cut him down or tore him down, his buttocks was an inch and a half above the ground. Again, which means his body weight was on his neck. Now, if somebody's hanging like that, the noose or ligature would ride up high on the neck and go high behind your ears to where it was tied to. But the autopsy photographs show that the ligature mark on Jeff's neck is in the middle of his neck and goes straight back, as if someone put a rope around his neck and strangled him, like Carlo in The Godfather, in the car.
Or the electrical cord to his CPAP
or the electrical
machine.
cord or whatever was there. But it doesn't look like the fabric from a bed sheet.
So if it seems clear just from the photographs of his autopsy that he was strangled with, say, a cord, wouldn't you test that cord for his DNA?
Yeah, nobody seems to know where that is. Also, the way they said he was hanging, and again, he had to be there for at least 2 hours. When you die, the blood in your body settles gravity takes the blood down to the lowest parts of your body, and they become blotchy from the blood pooling under the skin. So the back of his legs and his buttocks should have what's called lividity. They should have this blotchiness, like bruising look on the back of his legs and his buttocks. The autopsy photographs show that his legs are clear. So he couldn't have been hanging that way for more than, for 2+ hours. He'd have blood pooling in his legs. That's not the case.
So did the report explain the discrepancies from the autopsy? That bones in his neck were broken that are not seen in hangings, but are seen in strangulations?
Those broken bones they're seen in strangulations, but because he had 3 bones, it's also from karate chop to the neck will break bones like that. And that seems to be what I've spoken to military people, a preferred way of killing people is you karate chop them in the neck really hard, you collapse their windpipe, and that disorients them and incapacitates them, and then usually they just break their neck, or you can strangle them. So the breaks in his neck are more consistent with a karate chop than what's called a soft hanging. When you tie something around your neck and you sit down or hang yourself from something soft, like, unfortunately Robin Williams or Andre, Bourdain, was it, who killed himself?
Anthony Bourdain.
Right, those are soft hangings, as opposed to, Brooks in the Shawshank Redemption, who stood on a chair and sort of jumped off. That's a hard hanging. That will snap the bones in your neck. But that wasn't what happened with Jeff.
So Dr. Michael Bodden, who participated or was present at the autopsy, has participated in over 1,000 autopsies of prison deaths.
I have never seen 3 fractures like this in a suicidal hanging. Going over 1,000 jail hangings, suicides in the New York City state prisons over the past 40, 50 years, no one had 3 fractures.
His fairly firm conclusion is that this was not a suicide. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. He was holding off on that determination, pending determination of how the body was found, which we finally, now that they say the way the body was found, it just only shows that it was not that way. The autopsy shows it's not that way, which further convinced Dr. Bodden that this was not a hanging, not a suicide.
So here's what we wind up with at the end of all this. We wind up with a high-profile inmate in the most secure federal facility in the country's largest city who was somehow murdered, clearly with the knowledge of the Justice Department, and the Attorney General of the United States lies about it, which he did, and there's no reason to do that except to cover up the crime. So what does that tell us about this?
Oh, it's a scary thought that you could be killed in prison by the government. Yeah. Because again, my life would have been a lot easier if he committed suicide. I could have put it behind me. But it's obvious at this point in time that it was not a suicide. And so it means somebody killed him. So who killed him and why?
Right. So in talking to all the people around him or people who were connected with him in one way or another in the final weeks of his life, have you detected a fear in those people in talking about this?
No, not really. I don't think they're fearful of anything. I was the one getting the death threats, not them. I don't think they did.
Why were you getting death threats?
Well, when Jeff died, people tried to link me to his activities in some way, shape, or form. Again, I had not seen Jeff for 7 years prior to his death. We were in communication.
Wow.
We spoke, we emailed, but...
Wait, prior to his what?
To his death. We were in communication. We spoke, we emailed, but we lived 2 different lives. So I didn't know his...
Hold on.
Me to his activities in some way, shape, or form. Again, I had not seen Jeff for 7 years prior to his death. We were in communication. We spoke, we emailed, but we lived 2 different lives. So I didn't know his inner circle and he didn't know mine. But people tried to link me to his activities. And I was in contact with the FBI and the New York Police Department about the death threats. And I had, at times, had armed guards. When I went to the autopsy, I had armed guards with me to protect myself.
From whom?
From whoever killed Jeff.
But anyone who could murder someone in a federal detention facility obviously has a lot of power.
Yeah, well, I was trying to protect myself as best as I could. Yeah.
Do you fear for, I notice you're not appearing on camera. You've asked not to appear on camera.
Yeah, I don't want to be recognized. I travel a lot, and there's no need for me. This is not about me. This is about Jeff's death.
Did you have any inkling at all that your brother was involved in anything that might get him killed by a government?
No. Like I said, I wasn't involved with his day-to-day life, and his troubles he had with the charges with the girls was from the early 2006 is when he first got into trouble, and he spent time in jail for that.
Well, that's a question that's occurred to me. I mean, he went through all this, whatever you think of it, and then he was charged again for the same things, effectively.
Right. I mean, from what I understand, he had a non-prosecution agreement
Right.
with the federal government on that when he made his plea deal. So he believed he was safe from further prosecution. And then he flew home from Paris in July, and they arrested him on the same charges. And I believe his defense was going to be, well, hey, I have a non-prosecution agreement with the federal government. And supposedly they say, well, that was like the Southern District or some area. Well, as far as I know, we have one federal government. And if you make a deal with the federal government, it covers the entire country.
Has it occurred that maybe the point of rearresting him on the same charges was to get him into a facility where he could be killed?
I've shied away from speculating about all of this. I try to stick with the facts, but that's a possibility.
Do you think other governments might have been involved in this, not just the U.S. government?
I I would, on the surface, say no. I don't see why. I mean, again, I don't know what he was doing day to day, so, you know, again, that's speculation, which I don't want to do. But I don't think so. You know, on the surface, I don't see why.
What information are you still seeking about his death?
Well, who were the prisoners on that ward that night? How long were they there for? Now, if somebody was on that ward for, you know, a long time, like his roommate, then, you know, obviously they weren't planted there, you know, 2 years ago to kill Jeff then. So who was transferred onto that ward in the week or two before he was killed? And where are they now? Where were they transferred to? Were these real prisoners, or was it a plant?
Have you asked the Inspector General at the Department of Justice?
We asked all these questions, yes, way back when. And we get no answer. Yeah, after a thorough investigation, we've determined it was a suicide.
But no one's given you any details.
After a careful investigation, we've determined it was a suicide. That's what I was getting from them. I'm doing to you what they were doing to me.
What's your next move?
Well, I'm still trying to find the information. I have, you know, FOIAs out to try to get the medical reports, to try to get the 911 call. And just to get people thinking about this. People shouldn't, like you said, people shouldn't be complacent with the fact that somebody was killed in a federal prison under federal protection.
Yeah, and officials at the very highest levels are lying about it.
Yeah, and people should be aware of that. Whether we ever figure out exactly what happened, I don't know, but I don't want people to think he committed suicide, because that's not the case.
Mark Epstein, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm a little sussed out. Didn't see the guy, lived separate lives, didn't see the guy for 7 years. It's not very brotherly. It sounds to me like, I mean, it makes sense that you'd be obsessed with the story after the fact, but it doesn't mean you knew anything special, so I don't know. All right, so let's get into some more of the documents here. I pulled up some more of the documents that just released today. So we actually have another set of testimony here that I want to understand. This is the definition, or the deposition, excuse me, the deposition of Joseph Recarey. Joseph Recarey, which, guess what, folks? How weird is this? Much like yesterday, also dead. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but the ratio of people involved in this stuff, we're now dead, very high. And so this is the, wow, that is sussy. Oh, that is weird. Listen to this. Palm Beach detective who led the Epstein investigation. No way. The Epstein investigation, that's crazy. Okay, let's write that down. All right, so the detective who led it, who died at 50, I wonder what it says they died of. After a brief illness. Are you kidding me? Brief illness. You've got to be freaking kidding me. Recarey was known for his practical jokes, thorough investigations, work ethic. People really seem to like him. What the hell? No other information was revealed on the cause of death. Some people say it was sleep apnea. Huh. Okay. Well, I don't know. Let's just say it's a little weird. All right. So, what is this? So this is the deposition. This is also being taken at Las Olas Boulevard. We've had other depositions over there as well in this case so far. All right. I wanted to speak with everyone related to this home, including Ms. Maxwell. My contact was through Gus, attorney Gus Froston at the time, who initially told me he would make everyone available for an interview. During your investigation, what did you learn in terms of Maxwell's involvement, if any? Witness. Ms. Maxwell, during her research, was found to be Epstein's longtime friend. During interviews, Ms. Maxwell was involved in seeking girls to perform massages and work at Epstein's home. Did you interview? How many girls did you interview that you sought? How many girls did you interview that were sought to give or that actually gave massages at Epstein's home? Approximately 30 to 33. I believe 2 of them may have. How many actually had massage experience? I believe 2 of them may have. The one with the massage experience was older. Correct. Now, you got this darn attorney in here constantly objecting to the form of the question. They do this to preserve their rights to try to get you to, kick out evidence or whatever. It's just annoying to read in transcript, though. The remainder of the 30 girls that went to this house for the purpose of a massage or were recruited for a massage, my understanding, they had no massage experience. That's correct. And the majority of these girls that you interviewed over and under the age of 18, the majority were under. Wow. Is the detective seen as the witness here? Let me see here. I believe so. Yeah, they don't clarify that, but I'm assuming so, given that this is the deposition of the detective, and he's the one answering the questions. Okay, so, and as we go through this report, you may remember the names. Correct. Let me correct myself. I believe I only had 1. And that was one of the similar age groups. Okay, regarding with massage experience. The one with massage experience, the older. Okay, got it. The remainder of the 30 girls who went to this house for the purpose of massage, it's my understanding they had no massage experience. That's correct. Majority were underage. Each of the victims that went to the home were asked to bring their friends to the home. Ooh. At the end of that massage, if that victim brought other friends, would she get paid for the recruitment of those friends? Correct. Additionally, hey, it's like an MLM, but except it's like Jeffrey Epstein's MLM. Additionally, did your investigations reveal that the assistants of Jeffrey Epstein would call and set up for these girls to come over? Correct. And certain people that were friends or girlfriends or assistants of Jeffrey Epstein would recruit girls under the pretense of giving a massage. Correct. Is what your investigation revealed in terms of the system of getting these girls over the house? Yes. Okay, talking about the massages. When did these various girls that you interviewed describe the massages? Was there a pattern of what occurred during these massages? Yes, there was. Describe for us what you were told by the 30 or so girls. Initially, when the victims would come home, they were brought upstairs to provide a massage. Epstein would lay on the massage table where they would start to rub his back and back of his legs. Epstein would either attempt to fondle the girls or touch the girls inappropriately, and at which point he would pleasure himself. And when he was done, he would get up and go wash off while the girls would get dressed and go back downstairs and get paid. Okay, so did you determine that massage was actually a code word for something else? When they went to perform a massage, it was for sexual gratification. And when the assistants would call and ask these girls to work, what did you learn from the term work? Work meant to come and provide Epstein a massage. Wow, this guy needed a lot of massages, apparently. During the investigation, it was determined that he would have multiple massages. Oh, man, that's gross. I didn't know that I was going to go to this. During the investigation, it was determined that he would have multiple massages during the day. Good Lord. He would have some in the morning, some in the afternoon, and sometimes into the evening. Oh, my gosh. So he would All right. And so when you went to speak with the victims, what did the victims say about their experience with Jeffrey Epstein? Once they were recruited, they were brought home to give a massage. Some of the victims did not want to be touched. Some of the victims did not want to partake in that. So as I believe for a couple of them, only a one-shot deal, but others continued to come. And so you interviewed some of those victims. Did you learn that some of those victims also brought additional girls? That's correct. So as you're investigating the case, part of your investigation, you're learning information that from these victims, and then going to talk to the next person down the line, if you will. Correct. What's the purpose of that? To identify further victims. In doing that, were you able to corroborate the accuracy of what the first victim told you? Correct. You know what's scary is that this person talking right now is dead. Died at 50. Died suddenly. Before died suddenly was like a trend. Jeez. What was her role? Let's see. Did you turn over all your files to the secretary or the state attorney's office or FBI? Correct. Around the time of your investigation, around the time you ended your investigation and afterwards, were various newspaper articles written about the substance of some of your investigation? Yes. Did it become well known to the public that Jeffrey Epstein had recruited high school girls for a house and for the purposes of some sexually involved massage? This is correct. And in fact, haven't you read many of these newspaper articles? This is correct. This was not a hidden secret from the public in 2006, right? No. And from your overall investigation, kind of just big picture, what was the criminal activity, as specific as you can, that you learned from Jeffrey Epstein? It was sexual battery and lewd and lascivious conduct for under the age of 16. Under 16, even worse. From the recruitment to the how did they get them? What did they do? How did you keep it going? As it became known to us that the victim was recruited, brought to the home, provided the massage, and was paid, whether there was inappropriate touching, whether there was sexual activity, whether there was actually intercourse, all of this was documented and asked about whether they brought anybody else to the home. Okay, this is during the questioning, basically. Hey, look, it's like what I mentioned, an MLM. They're literally using the word. They stole my word. Well, I didn't actually say the word. I said MLM. Okay, one of the earliest victims in terms of the chronologically of this pyramid of girls, for lack of a better word. You understand what I mean? Yes. That there's one of the earliest victims you interviewed was Haley Robson, right? It was actually SG, I think was the first one I interviewed. Would it be Sarah? SG. Anyway. Okay, Mike, the question was, my bad. I know the first person interviewed that kicked off the investigation was SG. But just to create a picture of what we have here, this is, and tell me if I characterized it wrong, a scheme that Jeffrey Epstein engaged in by using assistants to recruit girls, right? Yes. Under the pretense of giving a massage, correct. Either massage or to become models for Victoria's Secrets or their connections. Wow. Wow. And he was able to get these girls home. He would offer them money to become recruiters for him. Correct. And you've mapped it out, this kind of spider web, of pyramid of girls. Correct. So when I say one of the first, I mean the top of the pyramid. Correct. And I think you testified that Molly and Tony drove HR to Epstein's house the first time. Correct. Did you trace all the way back to the highest level to determine who it was that started the particular chain of Palm Beach girls? I did not. Basically, and then it cuts off. Where's the other page? Oh, it jumps to something else. That's all we're gonna get. Really? Oh, how weird. Sus. Wow. How does it go from page 95? What is this crap? Page 95 to page 363. But look at how it's filed. Like, this is not like my missing PDF, because look at this. It says filed 1/4/24, page 18 of 18. And then look what it says right here. Filed 1/4, page 17 of 18. So, like, the actual file folder is documented in order, but they cut a bunch of crap out. What the hell? That's crazy. A lot of missing pages here on that deposition. I want to get to the details of that one. Boy. Here's a deposition of Stephen Olson. Stephen Olson. Okay. One of her doctors. What? Okay. Just try to get a little bit more detail here. Stephen Olson. Stephen Olson, one of her doctors. That's really all we have. Deposition from doctor. Okay. All right, let's write this down. So this was one of the doctors. All right, let's see what he has to say. All right. Do you know how you came to be the doctor for Virginia? No way. Okay. Doctor for Virginia. Let's write that down. The underage one thinking about writing a book. Okay. Do you know how you became a doctor? Or for Virginia? No. Was she referred? Don't know. Okay. Let's see here. Let's get... Doesn't sound like she was very memorable, actually. He doesn't really remember her. Well, that's not going to be a very interesting deposition, basically. Didn't know her handwriting. Didn't really know much about her. Fine. Pictures of the office, it sounds like. What? Is that it? Oh, that's lame. Well, that's a lame file. Okay. Who's this? Psychological nature. I've been presented consulting psychologist. Judith Lightfoot. Subject. Virginia. Just a random email thrown in here. There's a lot of stuff missing here, I feel like. Here's what looks like a 30-page complaint. Defendant boldly claims that Virginia is playing a game of catch and release by deliberately withholding information regarding her medical care. One witness, who was in tears as he recounted defendant bringing a 15-year-old girl into his employer's home, who in the utmost distress told the defendant that she stole the young girl's password and tried to make her have sex with Epstein and threatened her. Wait, this sounds like a Maxwell thing. Let's find out. Let's go to the top here. Okay. This is, yep, Maxwell, the defendant. There it is. Okay, so this is Maxwell. And so here's a new allegation. We haven't heard this before. One witness, Mr. Rizzo, was in tears when he recounted defendant bringing a 15-year-old girl to his employer's home, who in the utmost distress told him the defendant stole the young girl's passport and tried to make her have sex with Epstein, then threatened her. That's terrible. Rizzo also testified that he watched Maxwell direct a room full of underage girls to kiss, dance, and touch one another in a sexual way for the defendant Maxwell and Epstein to watch. Another witness, Joanna, whose deposition we read yesterday, testified the defendant recruited her from a school campus to have sex with Epstein. With lies about her being her personal assistant. Two other witnesses, one underage victim and another, gave testimony about how Epstein used other women to recruit minors to have sex with him. Most recently, a witness testified the defendant would call him and ask him to bring over young girls that she would provide to Epstein. Okay, factual background, medical identities. Virginia had 15 healthcare providers at one time. Wow, that's a lot. Now there's some argument about how many healthcare providers she actually had. Oh, we got some censored stuff here. Defendants trying to make something out of nothing. This sounds like a lot of sort of legal complaining over here. Legalese, back and forth. We had some of this yesterday, too. Looks like we have some records here of healthcare provided. A lot of healthcare provided around 2016. You know, whether that was, does it provide what kind? Psychiatrist, primary care physician, no treatment records, ER records. These are probably ways of trying to prove damages of when Virginia left or was able to end the trafficking that she was involved in. Okay. Yeah, a lot of this right here in this article, or a particular filing, I should say, not article, seem to be sort of defending the process a little bit more of what's going on here in court versus providing any kind of insight. So, yeah, we have a production debate here about failing to provide email accounts. iCloud and Hotmail emails. It's weird. Multiple medical records blurred out over here. Here as well. A lot of medical records. I'm trying to see if we have anything else to really hit in here. We've got a few more exhibits to look at. A lot of this so far seems like process. Just like legalese and detail here. Here is, okay, what's this? This is videotape deposition of Tony Figueroa. Okay. This also skips a bunch of pages. So look at this. Page 2, videotape deposition. And then it jumps to page 23. But again, it's in order of the court filing, going from 3 to 4. So there's still yet more to get out of this. Just sharing miscellaneous background information. Talking about a night school program. None of that was good. Motions to dismiss. A lot of procedural here. That's unfortunate. It'd be nice to actually get some details, but they don't want to give us everything. And good stuff's all disappeared. Defamation, libel, that's fine, which is a type of slander. Let's see here. Okay, interesting. So far we've got a little bit here on Clinton, a little on and the Vanity Fair, the Blackmail article or piece, and the Tucker Carlson piece was meh. Yeah, these documents are, I feel like, missing a lot of information. Let me see what we have here. I wonder if Prince Andrew is mentioned in this one package. Let's try Andrew. Yeah, Andrew, that's right. Okay, we highlighted here. Andrew. Plaintiff was paid more than $100,000 for her false story to the Daily Mail, as well as the sale of a photograph purporting to be herself and Prince Andrew. Wow. Well, that's an interesting allegation here. This is Exhibit 5, defendant's response to plaintiff's first set of interrogatories, so questions. So this is the defendant's response. So Maxwell's response, basically. Yeah, there it is. Ms. Maxwell's response is as follows. Interesting. So Maxwell is countering, going, well, you got paid $100,000 to make up stuff. Ooh, this gets interesting. There's Sharon Churcher. Wow. Allegations go in both directions here. I mean, that kind of makes sense. $100,000 though. It's a pretty juice story. What's this? Without waiver and foregoing, Miss Maxwell responds as the following. Plaintiff's records disclose that she allegedly had been sexually assaulted as a child by a family friend, and she had been a sexual slave in the capacity of a young teacher, or a young teenager. And she had been sexually assaulted as a 14-year-old by two young men in the Woodsies, and she had suffered at a since closed drug rehabilitation facility at the hands of guards, and she suffered from anxiety and depression before meeting Maxwell. Wow. This is sort of like an interesting argument from Maxwell that, you know, here's somebody basically who's already been through a lot of distress. And Maxwell's probably trying to make the argument that maybe they're not credible because of that. Oh, look at that. Plaintiff was advised by her own physician in Australia to engage in psychotherapy, but refused to do so. Did they just drop even more docs, really? Let me see. Somebody just wrote that in the comments. Because these docs have been out now for about an hour. I don't see any new, but we'll look. I don't know, it's a little late to do even more. No, I think it's just this. Hmm. 100 pages more? Really? Okay, well, let's pull it up. Where are y'all seeing it? We'll go grab them. I'll log into Pacer in the meantime and see if I can get them from there. Okay, let's see here. Unless they just dropped. Yeah, they dropped like a bunch of pages that are missing. There's so many pages missing, it's annoying. Okay, I want to look up the case really quick. But yeah, if somebody has a source, I would love to go to it. Okay, there we go. I got the case. Sent the link on IG. How'd you get it so fast? That was good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm logging into Pacer. Like, everybody must want these because Pacer is loading really slowly. That's a place you can get these documents. Yeah, I got it. The amount of documents in this case, by the way, are insane. Just how many filings there are. All right, let's see here. How do they keep dropping more information? Last updated. Oh, come on. 9:07 p.m. it is. Wow. So this is now the third set of documents that are dropped. Whew. Okay. So let's go through them. Okay, so we got a cover letter. We've got a lot of exhibits. Oh yeah, here's another. Well, this motion to wait a sec. This motion to squash Church's subpoena we've already seen, so that's not new. Going through these one by one. I'm not seeing new yet, but again, we'll keep loading here. Let me get back into Pacer here. I'm also going to just go into the last post on Pacer. 1326. There we go. 1326. That's 1325. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, I got it. Okay. Another 111 pages. That's why. It's going to cost me $9 to download it. All right, we'll do it. I did it. Okay, we'll get these up in just a second. I got them downloaded. Okay. Giant set of PDF docs here. 1326. That's the file number we're looking for. Got it. One sec. All right. 1326 number 1. 1326. Okay, number... That's just the cover. Care about that. Exhibit 2. Ooh, more police reports? Okay. All right. That could be juicy. And then we have... That's boring. Exhibit K. Okay. So let's see what we have here. Proving the allegations are... Okay, we've seen this before. This is a more clear version of the Stephen Hawking's orgy email we saw yesterday. Helpful leakage. Just throwing some articles around here. What is this? Something about how many kids are involved in witchcraft in Palm Beach. Okay, that's weird. All right, so that was file 2. Let me try file 1. Yeah, file 1 has police report. This has to do with the search. This looks very similar to what we saw yesterday so far, these 111 pages. It's like a more clear version of what we saw yesterday. Let me go back to Pacer here and just refresh. Maxwell. Okay. Yeah, there are literally 1,326 filings in this case. Insane. Yeah, this is the stuff that we saw a lot of yesterday. She stated she was called by Sarah for her to return to work for Epstein, stated it was her term used by Sarah to provide the massage in underwear. She declined. 14-year-old victim. I remember this from yesterday. The 14-year-old victim. Each time the girls were taken over, were previously told that they would have to provide a massage, possibly naked. So these are 45 pages here. Is there anything new in this? Why would they just refile this? Epstein turned himself into jail. Here's some phone logs. I don't remember this yesterday. Sprint Nextel numbers. Yeah, there's few documents here I haven't seen before. And it does have the filing date as today. So we know we're looking at the right stuff. I prepared 3 arrest warrant requests. Grand jury comments here. Subpoenas were being delivered. Epstein would have to submit to a psychiatric evaluation and no unsupervised visits with minors. Well, yeah, I freaking hope so. First introduced to Epstein when she turned 18 years old. Senior in high school. Brought there to make money. Would have to provide... This is a new one. Provide a massage to this Palm Beach guy. He exited the bath. She stated that she was taken by one of her friends. She was sent upstairs with Sarah while Epstein got ready for a massage. He exited his bathroom naked and turned around. Epstein asked her if being naked offended her. She stated... Hold on, let's make this a little more transparent. She stated she went upstairs with Sarah while Epstein got ready for the massage. He exited his bathroom naked and turned around. Epstein asked her if being naked offended her. So-and-so stated it made her uncomfortable. Epstein then put on his towel. Stated she rubbed his back, feet. Stated that she had no massage training or experience. Epstein attempted to touch her butt, but she pulled away. She told him she was uncomfortable. Epstein paid her and told her to leave. She got kicked out. Interesting. And then the girl heard from other girls that it was normal for Epstein to basically touch them and require them to be naked. Okay. Looks like here's some subpoenas about jet flights. David Rogers was identified as Epstein's pilot. Once he is in the cockpit, he doesn't know who the passengers are. Oh, okay, good one. That is just Epstein's people who do it. Yeah, right. He didn't want to be in. He doesn't want to end up dead. Let's see here. This so far, I asked her if he ever penetrated her. Harrison stated that during a massage, he inserted his fingers into her vagina as she massaged him. She stated this occurred only one time. Harrison stated the massage would be over when Epstein would climax onto a towel. This is so gross. The girls she would see at Epstein's house were very thin, beautiful, and without tattoos. Maxwell and Epstein have commented negatively about her tattoos previously when she provided massages. Christina Venero, licensed massage therapist. She was hired to perform Swedish massages, deep tissue massages. She was only paid for an hour. She refused to rub his chest. How not to get hired by Jeffrey Epstein. Tattoos and not willing to rub his chest. Okay, here's another one. Someone here, 17 years of age, met Jeffrey Epstein. Once cohabitated together when they modeled. Visited Victoria's Secret. Purchased undergarments from the store utilizing money given by Epstein. Shopping day. Pulled the stuff out of the bag, wanted her to try it on, feeling compelled. She went to another room to put the bra and panty set on, walked out to the living room where they were sitting and modeled the suit. Okay. A lot more of these sort of police interviews here. Oh, this is Joanna. Gifts or gratuities. She advised Epstein took care of her tuition at college, received a rental car, received other gifts. The client she was referred to was Glenn. That's probably Glenn Dubin. And his wife, who she provided massages to. Both of them. Oh, how interesting. Okay. I'm going bottom up here, by the way, because we've recognized some of them at the top. Here's another interview. Let's see, who's this girl? Epstein told her to get comfortable, remove her blouse and pants and stayed in her panties. Stated she was not wearing a bra. She believed she was wearing thong panties. And Epstein turned over onto his back and began touching her. Epstein touched her breasts and began touching her in her vagina area. Epstein instructed her to rub his chest and rub his nipples. So weird. Stating the touching consisted over the panties, and the first time he stroked her, but stayed on top of the clothing. During the first massage, she stated Epstein was stroking her and began pleasuring himself at the same time. He put his hands under the towel. Yeah. She continued rubbing his chest until he grabbed her and pulled her closer. He appeared to have finished because the massage was over after pulling her closer to him. Epstein told her that there were $200 for her on the dresser. He told her that she could not tell anyone what happened in the house, or bad things could happen. Wow. Went there 3 or 4 times, was very scared and felt very nervous. Epstein's money, he was powerful. Wow. Okay. Let's see what else here. These police reports are really interesting. Who's this guy? During a sworn statement, Mr. Rodriguez was employed by Epstein for 6 months. Rodriguez stated Epstein would have 2 massages a day. 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. Every day. Every day. Would deliver roses. He knew girls were still in high school and were of high school age. I asked Rodriguez about the massages. He felt there was a lot more going on than just massages. Yeah. He would discover massages, vibrators, and sex toys scattered on the floor. He said he would also wipe down the vibrators and put them away in the armoire. Oh, no. No. Could you imagine having that job? No. No. Oh, no. Oh. Rodriguez referred to him as the human ATM machine and was ordered by Epstein to maintain a minimum balance of $200 at all time. Good Lord. Got another 200? Got another 200? Got another 200? Oh. Model lingerie at a Palm Beach mansion. Singular. Wow. Okay. Some Dershowitz talk here. MySpace profiles. Some of this is starting to sound familiar again from yesterday. Phonefinder.com? What is that? Okay. All right. Let's see what other documents we have here. Trying to see what else there could be. There are a lot. And this goes back to the search warrant. Okay. Yeah, got it. Okay. That's what we had covered already. So we're pretty close to the top. What do we have here? Epstein wouldn't be available for statements. Duties of some others. There's a lot of documents. $200 for the massage. We've seen that. Oh, what's this? During a sworn statement, she was 16 years of age and was approached to make money providing massages for $200. She would have to provide the massages topless. We've heard this all before. She recalled a bathroom had a large pink couch, sauna, and matching shower. Epstein entered the room wearing only a towel. 40 minutes into the massage, turned over onto his back, and requested they wait. Instructed somebody else to finish the massage. Okay, yeah, I do remember reading that yesterday. Okay, so now we're back at the top. Let's go to some of the other documents that just dropped. So that's file number, let's see here. Okay. So that is, let's see here. Jump around between the other ones that we've got. Okay, so we did 1 and 2. We did 0, 1, 2. Let's go to 3. Okay, number 3 says Exhibit 2. Email chain. Okay, this is like a list of email addresses. Interesting. Discussions, thoughts and impressions of the attorneys. This is like a summary of some of the things that have been filed. Legal issues. Yeah, this is just a summary of the available documents. Seeking legal advice. Okay. So quick scroll through this doesn't really provide us anything. No, that's nothing. And then we have number 4, which is the last of 5 of these dropped pages or sets. What's this? Request for production, FOIA, Jason Richards, email chains about freedom of information, police department records. Hi, Jason. Back in the long term. Okay. Brad Edwards, my attorney. Further case into proving how much pedophilia occurred by Jeffrey. And many other monsters he obliged with. Some miscellaneous emails here, some more summaries. Don't tell me it's just giving me more summaries. It is. Every other page is just more and more summaries. Okay. Interesting. Let me see if yet more files dropped. I'm going to take a quick look here. Let me refresh Pacer. So that was 1326. So let's see if we get a new number past 1326. Yeah, not much here about, I mean, I don't think Trump is mentioned at all in these that we've seen today. Okay. Let's get to the bottom of this. Quite literally the bottom page. 1326. Yep, nope, that's the last document. All right. So let's do a little bit of a summary of what we've got here. This is another 400 pages of documents that we've got. So yeah. Give me 1 second and we'll do a little summary. Okay, so we had Blackmail, Bill Clinton, some of the protective order discussion. I'm gonna put down a little, like, may as well write down a quick little outline of what we'll touch on here really quick in the summary. So we'll do Blackmail, Bill Clinton, the NPA, the protective order, the detectives, which is page 195, the NPA, which we covered. Oh, we do have some blacked out sections over here. I don't think we covered. Did we cover what was in this section? Let's take a peek here. Virginia's revised disclosure. Oh, this is like a list of names. Yeah, but we've seen these. Okay. So the protective order would be page, that was 96. Blackmail and Clinton. We'll hit those, which was let's see, 75. 75. That's for the email we saw about Clinton. Blackmail comes up on page 97 and 99. May as well put them in order. And then we have, after the detective, which was interesting. Oh, the part about the $100,000 was very interesting. The Maxwell response, right? This is like a drama. And Maxwell responds. Page 320. Okay. And then in the other documents that released, we really got a more clear email of the Stephen Hawking's drop. We have the Tucker Carlson summary. We have the police reports. Those were the most interesting. And honestly, the saddest one of those had to do with the poor well, I mean, of course, the people who were abused. But the newest, I shouldn't say sad, it's the newest, because of course everybody who's abused, that's sad. But the newest was the guy who had to clean everything up, Mr. Rodriguez. That was on page 28, who considered himself the human ATM. We'll call him the cleaner. Oh. We did have some more underage girls here, which was terrible. We had the 17-year-old who was bought Victoria's Secret goods. That seemed to be pretty common. That was on 34. Oh, Dershowitz on page 128. Yeah, you're right. Let's go to that too. Thank you for that. Good call. Okay, then we've got... Oh, they don't like the tattoos. That was interesting. That was on page 35. Underage girl 128. Yeah, we'll hit 128. Thank you for that. The Palm Beach guy. All right. Good. 17 years old, yeah, with Victoria's Secret. Okay, got it. So we'll prepare that. And then let me get to 128 quickly just to see exactly what y'all are referring to here. I remember this. I think I do at least. Oh, wait, maybe I don't. Hold on a sec. Let's look at this. This is 128. These are some of her claims of loss. I might be on a different page, a different 128 here. These are some of the restitutions that she's looking for. Basically, $100,000 of present value restitution. Interesting. Write that down. Estimated lost income, present value of $3 million. Here's more. Compensation estimated to be in excess of $180,000 a year. Punitive damages, $50 million. Got some big asks. Okay. Yeah, let's get Alan here. Let's see where everyone's 128 is. Alan Dershowitz. guess I'll start at the bottom. Ah. Dershowitz was an eyewitness to, the Jane Doe 3. Okay, yeah. This part's. Eyewitness to the sexual abuse. This was along the line of the blackmail. Yep, okay, we got that. Oh, wow, look at this pedo claim. Look at this one. We all suspect Alan is a pedo, though we have no proof of that. You probably met him when he was hanging put with J.E. Who wrote this? From Sharon Churcher. Wow. Wow. The Reporter called him a pedo. All right. Okay. So, let's do the summary. Should be fun. A lot of pages to hit, but that's okay. 75. Okay. Well, part 3 and part 2 of the Jeffrey Epstein files have been released today, January 4th, 2024. If you have not yet seen the complete summary of part 1, I have a 25-minute video. You can find it easily just by going to ehack.com. You can see my written summary, the actual documents. We'll have these documents up there as well, and this 25-minute video summary that I posted on YouTube. But for now, let's get to some of the juicy new things that came out on the Epstein files, or in the Epstein files. And we're going to be talking Bill Clinton, blackmail, pedos, the person who had to clean up after Jeffrey Epstein, how much Virginia, who is one of the underage, alleged sex trafficked girls, how much she's looking for in restitution. How many dollars? Is it thousands, hundreds, millions? We'll talk about that. We'll also break down what happened to the detective, the lead detective, and we'll touch a little bit on Tucker Carlson's interview with Jeffrey Epstein's brother. There's a lot to cover. First, we'll just go in order here. Page 50 of the part 2 drop. There's a part 2 drop and a part 3 drop. Part 2, page 50, Alan Dershowitz. This is the Harvard law professor and a criminal law attorney. Sharon Churcher is a journalist who's working with Virginia to prod more information out of her. She emails Virginia and says, quote, "We all suspect Alan is a pedo, though we have no proof of that. You probably met him when he was hanging put with J.E., Jeffrey Epstein." Yikes. Then we've got the mention to Clinton. Clinton comes up on page 75 in this drop. Clinton comes up in this email again between Sharon Churcher and Virginia, who goes by Jenna. That's her nickname. That was true yesterday in the documents. It's true again today. And here, there's a quote that Bill Clinton apparently walked into Vanity Fair and threatened them not to write sex trafficking articles about, here you go, about his good friend, J.E. Now, Virginia here is concerned that Vanity Fair might write a damaging article about her, especially since she, at the time, was talking about having an upcoming book release, like a tell-all on her experience being violated by Jeffrey Epstein. Sharon Churcher replies that there's definitely a gamble and that Virginia should sell the rights to certain photos to the company Sharon Churcher works for. Now, this is interesting because Maxwell actually responds to some of these things. Now, this is crazy. This is like a YouTube drama where one person has an allegation and the other person does the response video or whatever. Maxwell responds, and here's what Maxwell has to say about Virginia. You can only guess. Let me give you a quick brief summary. It's a lot of she's a liar and everything she's saying is wrong. But look at what Maxwell alleges. Maxwell responds that Virginia is seeking public attention to her fabricated story regarding Maxwell. And Virginia was paid more than $100,000 for her false story to the Daily Mail, as well as the sale of a photograph purporting to be of herself and Prince Andrew, and the leaks to, there it is, Sharon Churcher. Wow. Then, on top of this, we get allegations that that Epstein and Maxwell would use the experiences described by underage girls as blackmail to basically extort more money out of people who were using the Epstein and Maxwell services. Look at this. Page of this document set, 95-96. Epstein also sexually trafficked then minor Jane Doe, making her available for sex to politically connected and financially powerful people. Epstein's purposes in leading Jane Doe, along with other young girls, was to such powerful people, were to ingratiate himself with them for business, personal, political, and financial gain, as well as to obtain potential blackmail information. Okay, so how would potential blackmail information be obtained? Well, here you go. Epstein also trafficked Jane Doe 3 for sexual purposes to many other powerful men, including numerous prominent American politicians, powerful business executives, foreign presidents, a well-known prime minister, and many other world leaders. Epstein required Jane Doe number 3 to describe events that she had with those men so he could potentially blackmail them. The government was well aware of Jane Doe 3 when it was negotiating the non-prosecution agreement. See, this statement of fact right here is actually put together by the defense attorneys for some of the girls who collectively are coming together to report that Jane Doe 1, 2, and 3 were repeatedly sexually abused by Epstein and sexually trafficked, and that because the government signed a, quote, non-prosecution agreement negotiated by Alan Dershowitz for Epstein and himself and other co-conspirators, preventing them potentially from being prosecuted, the girls are suing, saying, yo, government, you are screwing us because you're protecting Epstein. Why, government, would you be protecting somebody like Epstein? He's a pedophile and he's molesting children. And then, of course, that's where a lot of people say, well, isn't it obvious? They were involved. Yikes. Jane Doe 3 was approached by Maxwell, one of the main women whom Epstein used to procure underage girls for sexual activities, and a primary co-conspirator in his sexual abuse and sex trafficking scheme. Maxwell herself regularly participated in Epstein's sexual exploitation of minors. Jane Doe 3 is believed, by the way, by me to be Emmy Taylor. Yesterday, we heard from some of the other depositions that Emmy Taylor was believed to be so young that she was still in high school. And we heard a lot of allegations that the common age was anywhere between 15 to 21 for girls to be abused on Epstein's Island, in New York, in Paris, in France, what doesn't matter, Mexico, all around the world. These girls were trafficked to provide massages to Epstein. Now, the manner of these massages, at least to Epstein, we found some more details today. And let me just preface this by saying the details aren't particularly pleasant, but they're almost exactly the same every single time. Almost exactly the same. Basically, Epstein ends up at his house and they invite girls over. Here's an example of one who didn't do what Epstein wanted, so you can imagine what happened. Epstein, here's a girl who was first introduced to Epstein when she turned 18, so she was of age. But anyway, her goal was to provide, or job was to provide a massage to this Palm Beach guy. And so she met the booker in the kitchen, was brought upstairs while Epstein was getting ready for his massage. He exited his bathroom naked and turned around. Epstein asked her if being naked offended her. She said it made her uncomfortable. Epstein then put on a towel and she started the massage, even though she had no massage experience. Epstein tried to touch her butt, at which point she said she was uncomfortable, and then she was paid $200 and asked to leave the house. That was one of the, dare I say, ones who got away, because most, unfortunately, of the girls were pressured into believing that because Epstein had a lot of money and power, it would be very bad to offend the Epstein household. For example, here's one where a girl named Joanna Harrison, who had also just turned 18, was asked if he had ever penetrated her. Harrison stated that during his massage, or during Epstein's massage, he inserted his fingers into her vagina as she massaged him. She stated this occurred only one time. Harrison stated that Harrison stated the massage would be over when Epstein would climax onto a towel, and then they would be paid, basically, to go away. Here's one person that actually didn't really click with Epstein. Apparently, Epstein didn't like girls with tattoos. Here was a licensed massage therapist who actually gave Swedish or deep tissue massages. She was only paid $100 because Epstein didn't really like her that much, apparently. And they made fun of her tattoos. There's another example where Epstein would pay a 17-year-old girl here to buy product from Victoria's Secret, utilizing money given to her by Epstein, and then basically asked to come back and model the bra and panty set, model the outfit. Within the same week, she returned to have a massage. Let's see, and then there's some other information here that's not so important. Here's another one we have. This one, this is Joanna. We had her deposition. Joanna stated that there were times that Epstein would ask her to perform during the massage. He would instruct her to rub his nipples as he masturbated himself. Joanna stated she felt grossed out about his behavior, but she was also getting paid and just continued. Epstein would occasionally use a vibrator on her vagina area as she performed massages. Epstein also showered her with gifts and provided tuition payments for her college. She would also provide massages to a client we believe now is Glenn Dubin and his wife. These stories go on. They go on not just with 18-year-olds, but also of underage girls with not just items that we've seen today, but also what we saw in yesterday's summary. So if you haven't seen yesterday's summary yet, make sure you look at yesterday's summary. Here's another one where a girl was asked to essentially take her clothes off while providing a massage, was offered $200. We also here have Mr. Rodriguez, who was employed by Jeffrey Epstein for about 6 months. And guess what Mr. Rodriguez got to do during his 6 months working for Epstein? He knew the girls were still in high school and were of high school age. I asked Rodriguez, this is an investigator, I asked Rodriguez about the massages. He felt there was a lot more going on than just massages. He would clean Epstein's bedroom after the alleged massages and would discover massager/vibrators and sex toys scattered on the floor. He also said he would wipe down the vibrators and sex toys and put them away in the armoire. He described the armoire as a small wood armoire, which was on the wall close to Epstein's bed. He thought of himself as a human ATM machine, always having to have $2,000, a minimum balance of $2,000 at any time to always be able to hand $200 for a massage payment to Jeffrey Epstein. Another thing that we learned about Jeffrey Epstein is that Epstein liked a lot of massages. Rodriguez stated that Epstein would have 2 massages a day. Epstein would have 1 massage in the morning and 1 massage in the afternoon every day. In addition to this, we have the desire for restitution from individuals like Virginia, and we've talked about a little bit ago. On page 128, we will find how much money she is looking for and how she comes up with her total. There's some examples here of how she believes the psychological traumas that she experienced were worth $102,000 in present value that she should be paid out. But it's not just that. Annual health expense services of $1,700, expected treatment costs of $102,000 on an annual basis, annual health care basis, adjusted for inflation. The loss of standing in the community, loss of dignity and invasion of privacy, $30 million payout, pain and sufferings in there as well. And then we're looking for another, let's see here, $30 million for defamation because Maxwell implied that the sexual abuse was an obvious lie. And therefore, Virginia, because she argues this is true, is demanding $30 million. Then she's also looking for lost income of $180,000 annually for every year. We've got growth rates in here. We've got present values in here. We've got loss of compensation of $5.4 million in here. This is what Virginia is suing for. And then, of course, based upon all relevant factors, including the egregious nature of the defendant Maxwell's conduct, the need for a large award to punish and deter conduct in the view of the vast wealth of Maxwell in an amount of not less than $50 million in punitive damages. On page 195, we also hear from a detective. This is the detective's the detective who led the investigation into Epstein, Joseph Recarey. Guess what? Died suddenly after a, quote, brief illness at 50. This detective does go through a deposition and reiterates a lot of what we've heard in the police reports about how they interviewed about 30 to 33 girls, and that most of them did not have massage experience, that they were asked to recruit other girls under the pretense of giving massages, but then Epstein would attempt to fondle the girls or touch the girls inappropriately, at which point he would pleasure himself. And when he was done, he would get up, wash off, and the girls would get dressed and go back downstairs and get paid. Work meant to come provide massages to Epstein. Epstein would have multiple massages during the day, morning, afternoon, sometimes into the evening. Some of the victims did not want to be touched, but some of them felt intimidated, came back anyway. It became well known to the public that Jeffrey Epstein had recruited high school girls to his house for the purpose of sexually involved massages. The detective believed this obviously violated the law, and so on. There's a little bit more detail here in terms of how he started and how they actually start describing this whole network as like a pyramid scheme where one girl needed to recruit multiple other girls. So far we've got the non-prosecution agreement. We got Bill Clinton. We got the blackmail. We got Alan Dershowitz. We got the detective. We got Maxwell's response. We got the restitution. We got the cleaner, Victoria's Secret, and tattoos. The last thing is the Tucker Carlson interview. Tucker Carlson, I'm going to keep this one short. Tucker Carlson had an interview with Mark Epstein, which is apparently Jeffrey Epstein's brother. When I was listening to it, I was a little bit sussed. I listened to the entire thing, but I felt like Mark Epstein was somebody who has just been really involved in this case, but didn't actually know anything until after Jeffrey Epstein died. That suspicion was somewhat corroborated when Mark said, quote, "I had not seen Jeff for 7 years prior to his death. We lived separate lives." So I personally didn't really enjoy Tucker Carlson's interview, not because I thought maybe Tucker Carlson didn't do a good job, but simply that I don't think that Mark really gave us anything proprietary that you couldn't get off of Google. So I was a little bit disappointed in the Mark Epstein interview, mostly because a lot of what I heard from Mark was just, well, I've heard from doctors, or I heard on podcasts, or I heard from, you know, first responders, this, that, or whatever. So, yeah, that was sort of my take on the Epstein, the Mark Epstein interview on that Tucker Carlson had. But otherwise, these are part 2 and part 3. If you have not yet seen part 1, make sure you go to ehack.com. I'm going to post more of a summary and the documents that we have here. These will be up soon. I'll publish these on here, but I've already written some of the Epstein files part 2 on here, including a link to some of the documents. And if you scroll down a little bit more on ehack.com, you will also be able to see the Epstein files from yesterday, short summary, along with the summary breakdown video, which is a good 25 minutes to catch you up to speed. So if you watch yesterday's video and today's video, you're caught up to speed on what's going on with the Jeffrey Epstein files. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you like this kind of breakdown of finance or politics or drama or whatever it is. I'm Meet Kevin. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.